All right, as we get rolling, I just need two wins or gratitudes that we can start with, and then we will go. So I can sit here with just two wins from the week or two things we're grateful for. Who's got something for me?
Well, Ben, I will just start. Last week, hopefully none of you guys noticed, but I'll just be completely vulnerable here. Last week, when I was on the call Thursday, this will give you a morning laugh. I was running late, and so I was in the shower, and my camera was actually on for our
Oh
Zoom
no.
call. So,
Oh
so
no.
I'm just really excited that the angle was off. The angle was really bad, and then when I realized it, I was able to cut it off. So I'm thankful for uh that could have been a catastrophe. You would have never seen me again, and I would have quit.
Oh my gosh. Did anybody notice? Nobody texted you?
Well, no, because what I did is the only reason I noticed I had flipped my hair over to dry it, and that's when I saw my face, and I saw Steven raise his eyebrows, and I was like, "Holy moly!" And then I turned it off. So,
That's
yeah, Vince got a good laugh out of that. But anyway, so I am thankful for just a break on that because I would have quit and you would have never seen me again.
same. I would have done the same. Just been there. I think that's everyone's biggest fear. Awesome. Well, that's a good one. So we will go with that. I want to talk about just kind of a conversation that we had with our ALC, turn it into listings. Uh, yes, when we talk, and this is kind of our market stats for the moment. The biggest stat that's shown up to me that I think is crucial when we're talking about listings is, and I'm going to make this interactive. So if people could mute and just give me, these are super easy questions. Are there more or less or the same amount of buyers this year as there were last year? More buyers, less buyers, or the same amount of buyers as last year? You got a 33% chance of getting it right, and I'm not going to get mad at anybody for getting it wrong. More buyers, less buyers, or the same amount of buyers as last year?
I know the market is saying fewer, but what we're seeing in the numbers, it actually looks like there's more buyers, and we are in one of the biggest growths areas in the nation.
Sure. That's a great point, Tim. And when you look at, I want to talk about this in two ways. When we look at the number of transactions, we are pretty much dead on the same number of transactions. We have skyrocketed mortgage in that. We have skyrocketed in mortgage applications. Yet the same amount of transactions are happening. Why is that? Because people are getting to the table, seeing what they can afford, and saying, I'm just going to rent. And that comes in two parts. One, because they can't afford where they want to go, or two, they can't afford a property in general. But the mortgage applications are up. So you have more buyers raising their hand in 2025 than ever before saying, I want to buy a house, yet that number of home sales is not increasing. Why is that? Well, that comes again in a couple parts. My belief is that the largest group of home buyers right now is millennial and Gen Z. They are the largest group of home buyers. Millennials and Gen Z are delaying adulthood and are not moving because the answer where you go is, well, you're going to have to come down on something. You're going to have to move location, especially in a market like Charleston. You're going to have to switch your location. But I want you to talk to the single millennial person who doesn't have kids, who's not married. Do they want to live in those locations, or do they want to live in a location where they can afford to rent? The stats are telling us that they are location specific. That is the number one thing that drives them. They don't want they don't want to live in the suburbs. They want to live in the heart of it all, especially in a city like Charleston and Charlotte, where they're delaying adulthood. So we know that millennials are getting married later, having children later, if having children at all, but they're still the largest group of home buyers wanting to buy their house. So an opportunity for you guys is, okay, well, how do I paint that dream to them? Not try to force them to cut down on things that they want. Just a quick little side note. But as we talk to listings, so we know that the same amount of transactions as last year have happened this year. We have more buyers, but the same number of transactions is happening. Are there more or less homes for sale? There's a staggering number of listings that are coming on the market, more than we've seen. Yet we're still telling people we're in a seller's market. The stat is so crazy that because of the number of listings that are coming on the market and the amount of transactions that are actually happening in the market, 33% of listings will not sell. I have the same number of buyers. I have more listings. That means that 33% of our listings are not going to sell this year. How do listings sell? What are the three things that we can do to get them sold? Price, condition, location. That's it. When you're talking to a seller and their house isn't selling, whether it's an expired, whether it's for sale by owner, whether it's one of your listings, there's three things. There's three things that we can talk about: price, condition, location. That's it. I can't move your house, so this is the location that it's in. This is what the numbers tell us this location is worth in this condition versus this condition. So I can either ask them to increase the condition of their home or lower the price. All of this is to say is when you are taking a listing, it is more important now than it has been since 2017, 2016, 2015 to go into that listing understanding how do I have the best product on the market from a price, condition, and location standpoint. Do we agree? Say yes. You don't need to unmute for the yes. So thank you, James. So price, condition, location. 33% of listings are selling. Do we take overpriced listings? I go out there, I have a conversation with the seller, they're stuck on price. Do we take overpriced listings? James, that's one way. No. I think that a well-communicated listing is a listing you should take. What I mean by that is I go out and I talk to James, and James tells me that his house is worth 500. I think it's worth 450,000, but I clearly communicate, James, I do not believe your house is going to sell at $500,000. You've got every other agent on the block that is telling you, but here's the cost of pricing your home over market value. And you're going to show them the statistics behind that. Meredith, do you guys do the market update, the quarterly market update in your office that Vince puts on with Joseph?
Yes, we do that.
Perfect. So one of those stats that it talks about is the cost being on the market for 120 plus days. If you can communicate to your seller that exact cost, Tim says you tell them the right price. Hold on. Let me get to my notes. You tell them the right price. Back it with the CMA. Then if they list higher with someone else, you call them smugly and condescendingly when it expires, or that might just be you. I think that's just you. Tim, one of the things, because you bring up a point, there are agents out there who are buying listings. They're buying listings, they're going into the market, and that's why we have so many expires, and that's why these prices are so inflated, is because agents are not willing to have conversations with their clients about how much their home is actually worth. And now we have a market filled with overpriced listings. The listings that are selling, if you're receiving offers, are sometimes 50. I've got an offer for $100,000 off of list price a couple weeks ago on a $575,000 house. So buyers are coming in more aggressively because they're allowed to. Sellers are staying so high on their price because they think that that's what their home is worth. But you go into the listing, you communicate, this is what I think your home is worth, this is what the cost is going to be, and if they still don't listen to you, I suggest taking the listing. And the reason I suggest taking that listing is because every home sells, it's just a matter of whose sign is in the yard when it does. And what I mean by that is if you communicate with your clients and tell them the honest truth and give them feedback, and do everything you can to get their home sold at the price that they decided to list it, but you continuously show them the data as to why it's overpriced, it will be your sign in the yard when it does sell. Because every seller reaches a breaking point. Now, James, to your point, if you go out there and there's no motivation and they say, well, we're just testing the market, you test the market with somebody else's time. But if there is true motivation to sell, take the listing, because everybody's house sells. It's just a matter of whose sign is in the yard when it does. I'll tell the story about 5885 Munger Road. 5885 Munger Road. I was 23 years old. It was the biggest listing in this city. It had been with 5, 6, 7 different agents. I don't remember at this time. I finally got a chance to list it. It was 10,000 square feet in a neighborhood where the average home square footage was about 1,500 square feet. It was totally overbuilt on this huge lot, gorgeous house though, in a less desirable neighborhood. And I finally get the listing, and they told me, and I told them, I said, I don't know what it's going to take to sell your house, but every week you and I are going to sit down on Wednesday, and we are going to do everything that we can and come up with a different strategy to sell your house. And any agent that comes out here with a marketing plan for the next 6 months is the 7 agents that you've hired before me, and we're going to adjust every single week and go over the data and talk about what it's going to take to sell your house. Well, that house sits on the market for 9 months. I've had to file 2 police reports with people trying to break in, pretending they're photographers, and it's been a nightmare. But every single Wednesday, we sat down with the sellers and talked about a plan. So they continued to stay with me because the other agents stopped talking to them. The other agents stopped trying things. We just continued to go over the stats, and I gave them my honest opinion every single Wednesday. Well, one day I'm in about an hour away from this house visiting a buddy, and I get a call. I had to be at all showings. And this agent, Natalie, calls me. She goes, Ben, we want to see this house, 5885 Munger. I said, I'm about an hour away. She goes, my clients are only in town for a day. Any chance we can do it? I said, you know what? I'll be there. I drive an hour. They're about 2 hours late. Luckily, it's Sunday, so I'm watching football on their TV. They come into the house. It's 10,000 square feet. They're in it for about 15 minutes. They walk out. I get a call from Natalie later. She goes, hey, Ben, we're going to give you a full price offer. We're going to buy all the furniture in the house for about $50,000, and we're going to give your client 60 days to move out after closing. I said, what? She said, I sent you over the offer here in a little bit. I get the offer. I call the owners. The owner says, so what should we do? I said, well, we're going to take it. And then when we're going to get to the closing table, you're going to get the money wired, and you're going to wire it to a separate bank account because there's no way this is possible. But sure as shit, 10 days later, 5885 Munger closes, and we found a 4-leaf clover, hit a hole in one, and won the lottery all on the same day. Every house sells. It's just a matter of whose sign is in the yard when it does. As long as you're communicating with your clients consistently and honestly and delivering on what you say you're going to do, but never over-promising and under-delivering, your sign will be in the yard when it does. Whether it takes luck or a market dip or them reaching their breaking point, it's your sign in the yard when it does. Now, to Tim's point, there are agents that are going out there that are going to buy listings, and a good script around that is saying, Mr. Seller, I appreciate that Betty, the agent, says that she can sell your house for $550,000, and I'm telling you it's worth $500,000. If you're really stuck on this and you're refusing to take the listing at $550,000, what you're going to say is, I hope that she has a plan to get you an extra $50,000, but there is no comp in this market that will show that your house can get $50,000, especially in a market that is going in the opposite direction of that price. So if you do choose to list with her, because I cannot take your listing at $550,000 because I'd be wasting your time, my time, and it's going to ultimately cost you money. But if you do decide to go with Betty the agent, and in 25 days, 35 days, she either stops communicating or calls you for a price reduction, what I need you to do is send her over a termination, call me, and we'll list it at the right price. How does that sound? When you're showing up that you're so confident that the price isn't there, sometimes you can dispel those beliefs because they want to believe that they can make $50,000 more. Of course they do. But you and I know that that's not going to be the case. So when it comes to taking overpriced listings, that's on you. That is your decision to make. I always suggest if there is true motivation behind the sale, take it. As long as you consistently communicate honestly with them and deliver on what you say you're going to do. What are we seeing in the market right now when it comes to overpriced listings? Give me your ideas.
I can give you my neighbor in my own cul-de-sac. There's some hostility between us being neighbors, so I am not his agent. He's on his third agent, it's expired every time, and he still hasn't dropped his price.
Yep. And it's the agent's fault, right? The agents aren't doing.
I think there's some blame to go on the agent for not communicating clearly and sticking to what the market should bear. But I think realistically, in this case, it's the seller because they're not willing to drop their price.
When you are not, when you, what it's the agent's fault was a sarcastic question because the seller will blame the agent. But Tim, you're right that they are not communicating properly. That is on the agent to not communicate price. Because at some point there is nothing else I can do to get your home sold. I can continue to run ads, and at this point we're waiting for somebody to come with a brand new agent who doesn't know the market, who doesn't run comps, and pray to God the appraiser gets it wrong. But it is on the agent to communicate what the market actually bears, and if the seller refuses, well, at some point the agent needs to walk away as well. And then finally, I'm going to leave you guys with this. When it comes to listings in this industry, I read this in John Maxwell's Today Matters. And I want you guys to think about it. I'm going to take my camera off because I'm going to be reading this next to my face. But I want you guys to think about this. I'm going to ask some questions, answer them really quick. They're pretty simple questions, and then I'm going to read something to you. Do you expect to have more or fewer opportunities? Do you expect your marriage or most significant relationship to get better or worse? Do you expect to have more or fewer friendships? Do you expect your faith to be stronger or weaker? Do you expect to be in a better or worse physical condition? If you're like most people, your answers reflect that you expect the days ahead to be better. Now, let me ask you one more question. Why do you think that? If your expectation based on is your expectation based on anything other than a vague hope that your life will get better? I trust it is. For many people, it's not. They just figure that tomorrow is bound to be better. They have no strategy for making it better. In fact, the worse people feel about today, the more they exaggerate how good tomorrow is likely to be. They have a lottery mindset. Pulitzer Prize winning journalist William Allen White observed multitudes of people have failed to live for today. They have spent their lives reaching for the future. What they have had within their grasp today, they have missed entirely because only the future has intrigued them. I'm going to read that again. They have spent their lives reaching for the future. What they have had within their grasp today, they have missed entirely because only the future intrigued them. And the first thing they knew, the future became the past. Hoping for a good future without implementation and action in today is like a farmer waiting for a crop to grow without even planting the seeds. What do you hear with that? When I hear that, I think of the fourth law of lead generation. Service all leads. Service all leads. Everybody that comes into your life ever is going to buy, sell, or invest in real estate at some point in their life. Don't get caught chasing now business and forget about the future business. Now business can make you rich for a year, future business makes you wealthy for a lifetime. Your neighbor Tim might not sell with you today, but as long as you pour into that relationship years and years and years, at some point they're going to. Build relationships over time in this industry and you will win. This industry can be a sprint, but it is better run a marathon. When people used to get into this industry 20, 50, 30 years ago, They got in, they became the market expert. Think about the real estate agent that you grew up watching. Lois Sutherland was mine, Cindy Buckris. Both of those agents came into the industry and they built relationships and they knew everything going on in the market. And they were almost socialite people. They were almost local celebrities, Cindy Buckris and Lois Sutherland. And then all of a sudden, people started buying houses with them because they were the expert. They truly were the expert. And it took 20 years for them to get to that point. Now, the real estate industry looks different. I can expedite that process. I can become the local expert overnight through social media, through technology, through inbound leads. But the problem is that the service has gone down and the relationships over time have gone down because we're constantly chasing now business. Because I can get rich quick in this industry, right? Use the tools that are at your disposal to cut that time from 10 years to 2 years. But don't forget about all the people that came in your life over those 2 years and before that, and those relationships, and foster them for a long time. So that sprint out of the gate for 2 years can then become a steady jog that's increasing. So you have such a far lead over everybody that you can continue a jog, sprint here and there, but you're not dead sprint for the next 20 years, chasing now business. I hope today was beneficial, and I will see you guys next Tuesday.